Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
You know, I hate to say it, but this podcast, I almost forgot what it was about.
Oh, no.
Because we are doing a podcast on memory today.
Yes.
How to improve your memory. So this is one of those topics that it comes up so often with people I talk to because, you know, in a world where we have so much going on, we have so many devices, we have so many calendars, we have so many, you know, some people have 2 phones, 2 email addresses. Remembering to do things, right? You know, things as complex as our goals or as simple as like remembering to, you know, get something at the store that you ran out of. You know, it's very difficult to keep it all in our head and to remember things.
And I think technology can work against us with the memory because you can set reminders on your phone. Now with AI, I mean, you can make an AI bot to do a lot of stuff for you automatically that you don't even have to remember.
Yeah.
It's just, it'll do it in the background. And so that can be dangerous for obvious reasons, you know, but I think now is more important that we're practicing memory. And I look at memory just like anything physical. In order to get stronger, let's say, you know, the simple example is push-ups. You want to get more. Well, what do you have to do? You have to do more push-ups. You have to do them consistently. You have to do them regularly. You have to make sure that you're, you know, spacing them out. You have the rest, all of those things. Memory's a lot like that too. You know, you have to exercise it. You have to work it. And when we were doing the research on this and thinking back, this is the same thing that I did 30 years ago. I remember doing a memory course, and it was the same stuff. You know, so our brains haven't changed that much, especially in 30 years.
Yeah.
They're relatively the same. However, the technology certainly has from 30 years. And so I think this podcast, I think, is crucial for everybody.
Yeah.
Because again, with technology, it's so easy not to use your memory or not have to use your memory.
That's what I mean. I think technology has done 2 things. Like, number one, exactly what you said. You know, like when someone asks you, hey, who was that lady in that movie? You know, like there was a time when we actually had to sit there and think for 5 minutes and you know and talk about it and you know and you were using that memory portion of your brain more. You were digging more into it. You know, we don't really have to do that anymore because of technology, which is great because it saves us time and all the things. And then the second thing technology does is it gives more people a quicker ability to load stuff on us. Sometimes like, hey, you know, here's, you know, stop and do this, don't forget to do this, and we just have more things. So, you know, I think whether you're trying to remember, you know, very important things that you don't, hopefully like your name, your birthday, hopefully those you have, right? But regardless of what you're trying to remember, I think these 3 tips are crucial and super actionable, which is weird because this is such like a deep topic. You know, the fact that we have like such just actionable items for people to do makes this a lot easier.
And activating the memory, there are certain games that you can do to help with that, and certainly as you get older, that's the big fear. You know, I know my father is dealing with that and has been dealing with that for many years. The loss of memory. My mother-in-law has just started that. So it's tough to watch somebody that you love and you know very well go through this. And so while we're all young, we can certainly improve our memory before, if it ever goes. You know, certainly some people don't have that affliction, but it can happen. And so while we're young, let's make it strong. You know, let's make it stronger. Let's improve it. So the first tip, and a lot of this I think is common sense, but we're going to go through specifics on what you can do. So the first tip is engaging multiple senses. So that as you're doing it, as you're trying to learn something, if you're only looking at it, that's not enough, right? You need to make sure that you're doing more than that. For instance, if you're going to want to learn somebody's name, you know, and in my business and in your business, it's important to know names. Right? I mean, that's something big. So instead of just saying the name several times, which does work very well, so you hear the name and then you use their name right away afterwards. But if you have a chance to write the name down, if
Yeah.
you have a chance to say it throughout the conversation without being a little strange. If I just met you, hey Mark, nice to meet you. So Mark, tell me, and then Mark, and you people that use your name too quickly in succession, you know what they're doing, and it's also uncomfortable. So you want to try to smooth it in there. Now, sometimes you're not going to have a chance to write the name down, but as soon as you're done with them, you can write their name down, and that
Yeah.
that can definitely help. Right? You're
It's, you know,
you're you're laughing because I know you've experienced this.
But I'm laughing because I remember a while ago we had a podcast guest who did this, and they kept using your name, but they kept using the wrong. They kept saying it wrong, and
Yes.
I think and
Oh,
I bet they
yeah,
still
that was a
remember.
while ago.
I bet
Yeah.
they still remember you as that name because it's
Yes.
hard to forget. But
Yeah.
really, I think it's funny how doing things right and engaging multiple modes right in your brain helps you remember better. So I mean,
Yep.
you hear somebody's name, then you say their name, then you look at them right with your
Hmm.
eyes, and we kind of associate like how they look to the name so we don't forget their
Right.
face.
Right.
But when we put those senses together, it just helps solidify that picture.
Right.
And the repetition aspect of doing it over and over again, during that situation, I think is just it's a strong tip to help you remember better, right? I mean, repetition is not only the mother of skill, it's the mother of memory.
Yep. Yes, for sure. This is a mother memory. Yeah. And let's say you have a grocery list you want to remember. Writing it down certainly will help, but visualizing where it is in the store, visualizing you grabbing it from the place, all of that. And I think you can have a grocery list on your phone
Yeah.
with a checklist. So, I mean, this might not be something that you use, but if you want to improve your memory, it's a good thing to practice. It's like a little game. Studying for a test. I know in college, I wouldn't so much in high school because I don't think I tried as much as I should have, but in college at least I tried a little bit more. Is I always liked writing my notes, and then reviewing my notes. You can say them out loud. You can even draw diagrams. I think that's something that I learned after college and taking notes professionally, and as many seminars that I've gone to through the years, writing the notes down and then making a diagram of the notes that really stuck with me a lot better. So that's another way of using that memory more.
Yeah, and I do that during trainings. Like a lot of times as much as I'll write the things down that we're talking about when I'm doing a training, I like to draw pictures, and I'm a terrible drawer. I am the one you've seen it. I am one of the worst artists in the world, in
I
my
don't think
opinion.
so.
Like stick figures, arrows. But you know what? If those things help people remember, like what the thing is, it just helps them
Yeah.
solidify that thing that we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's a great tip.
Yeah. Yep. So tip number two is create vivid mental images and stories. So if you're trying to remember a phone number, for instance,
Yeah,
breaking it down in chunks. Now, of course, you can put it in your phone. You can Bluetooth and sync it now. But it's like I don't know about your kids, but I struggle trying to remember my kids' numbers because I just push, their number on
their
the
name.
phone
You push
with
their
my
name.
phone, and I
Uh,
push their name or their face. So I don't really even remember. Now I know my wife's because we got our phones together, and it's one digit off of mine. So it's pretty easy to know hers. And I had that memorized way before because we've had our phones together for 30 years. Um, but my kids, I struggle a little bit to remember their phone.
yeah.
That's not good. That's not good at all.
It's not, and I think but it's funny because like we do rely on that, right? Like we rely on the
Yeah.
technology to be able to say, call this person, right? And you just push their name. But if you ever, I mean, especially like I think about this with my same situation with my wife. Like I know her phone number because it's like one off of mine. But like I think, what if I needed to call my kids and my phone was dead? Like I would be
Yeah.
lost. So that's an important thing to
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
But I think, the ability to draw out stories,
Yeah.
and I think we talk about storytelling a lot. When we think about the things we remember most, a lot of the things we remember most, we remember them because there's a story into it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So turning the things you're trying to remember into a story,
Yeah.
and I talk to people about goals with this all the time. We've said this on the podcast. A lot of people just don't achieve goals because they forget that they're working on a certain goal. It
Hmm.
just bypasses their brain.
Right.
So if you can create that story, of yourself being the hero of the
Hmm.
story and doing the thing, you're going to remember the goal, the why, the purpose, all the things a little bit better. So I think trying to make some kind of a story out of it, it makes it that much easier to lock in.
Yeah, and the other tip with that is you can make it weird. You can make it because the
Hmm.
sometimes the weird it is, the
Yeah.
weirder it is, the more memorable it will be.
Uh,
So putting in your story some illogical thing that gets oh yeah, and so that can definitely help as well. So not just using and being vivid with the mental picture, but also being creative with it as well. It can
I love that
definitely
you
help.
I love that you said that. That's like 99% of my strategy to have people remember me is just to be
Oh yeah,
I like being the weird story
yeah,
that people talk about. And, now to be fair, at a networking event, being the weird story is usually not that hard
right,
to do, right? It's like
yeah,
a
yeah,
one step off. But
yeah, yeah.
um, so yeah, so I mean, I think that's a great tip. Moving into tip three,
Yep.
which is something I do all the time, is practice active recall
Right.
and spaced repetition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about that a little bit because I
Yeah.
know.
So this is something I've done with my professional career. So, like I said before, taking notes and writing them down, I think is important. I think handwritten notes are better than typed notes for
Yeah.
memory in my thing. And we have all now we have tablets, and I had a tablet 15 years ago that I could write on. That
Hmm.
was new technology, but now you can certainly write. So writing your notes, whether it's digitally write them or physically write them on pen and paper, I think is way better. But the other part is the spaced repetition of it. So I was taught that you should take really good notes, then review those notes later that day before you go to bed, and then you get up the next day, you just review your notes one more time, then you do it at least two more times during that day. So if you can, timing wise, you do it in the morning, like I said, then you do it in the afternoon, then you do it at evening. So you've reviewed your notes four times, three times the day after, and then one time the day of. And then you do it one more time a second day. And by then, you're on your third day, you pretty much remember 80% of your notes
Yeah.
if you take good notes. And that's spaced repetition. That's what that is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think about this. Number one, how is this applicable to people listening to the podcast in terms of your goals? Right, write down your
Yeah.
goals, look at them. 2, 3 times a day. Right, write them down once. We say write them every day. Write them
Yeah.
as often as once a day is great. A couple times a week, but look at them a couple times a day. Just glance at it until they're locked into memory. So if
Mm-hmm.
you saw somebody on the street and they said, "Hey, what are you trying to achieve this year?" If you can't recall that in that moment, then you need to do this more, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're not in your memory, then your subconscious isn't working on it. So I think
Yeah.
that's like tip for the goal. I use this when I'm, going throughout my day and I'm meeting new people.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do this systematically throughout the day where I'll say, okay, who did I meet new today? Around lunchtime, I'll try to review it. And I'll say, okay, I met this guy,
Mm-hmm.
this person, and
Mm-hmm.
this person, and then I'll do it again, around dinner time. I'll say, okay, who else did I meet? And then it's, the list grows throughout the day.
Yeah.
But by the time the day's over, I have those names and those people locked into my memory so I remember who to follow up with later.
Yep. Yep.
So I think that, both of those, that, active recall is important, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're doing a shopping list or whatever. But then that spaced repetition really helps lock it so that you don't forget in the future.
Yeah, and I'm not big on this, but some people use flashcards,
Hmm.
index cards, and write things on there, and that's fine. What I typically do is when I review my notes, I write bullets on my notes. So I summarize my notes, and so now I'm rewriting them from the first time, which is reinforcing.
Yeah.
And just like your goals, the reason you should rewrite your top goals every day is that spaced repetition goes in your memory, and it just reminds you of what you need to do. It gives you an action plan for the day. I mean, that's why it's so effective. Even if you don't rewrite your goals, even if you just glance at your top 5 to 7 major goals for the week, that's going to do a lot for you. That's going
Yeah.
to do a lot for your motivation. I mean, this has been around for years as far as a tip, but it's amazing how people just don't do it. You know, if you get people to write their goals, they don't look at them afterwards. Now, that's better than the people that never thought about their goals. But think of how much further you'd be if you just discipline yourself to take 5 or 10 minutes, which we all have,
Mhm.
and review your goals, review your notes, review whatever you're trying to learn to improve your memory.
Well, and I mean, I think that's a great tip because why is it important? Because if it's in our memory, then it gets into our subconscious, then it gets into our being,
Yeah,
then it gets into the
exactly.
world, right? And I think this, not only goes for our goals, but it goes for the things that we do for the people who are important to us, right?
Right.
When we forget those key things, whether it's, hey, can you remember to grab milk, when you go to
Mm-hmm.
the grocery store?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you forget, that's pulling, out of the emotional bank account,
Right.
so making memory a priority, especially, the spaced repetition, the active recall, all of those things, it's going to help you live a better life,
Right.
and I mean, none of us want to, not, we all think as we're getting older, none of us want to lose our memory, right? None of
Right.
us want to not be able to remember things, but I think taking the time to put the strategies in place to actively make it better, is worth the investment and the time.
Yeah. And my last point before we summarize, I think if you add this podcast
Hmm.
to technology, where we have reminders on our phone, we can set calendar events, we can set reminders for a week ahead, 2 days ahead, 2 hours ahead, 10 minutes ahead. I think you can be a super machine
Yeah.
getting things done because you have all of these technologies to remind you. Plus, you combine that with them trying to improve your memory. Who needs what Elon made? What do you call that in the back of your head that he's doing it
Right.
for?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Uh-huh.
We
Yeah, I
need
don't
it
know the
because
name of
we
it,
don't
but
remember, we don't know the name of it, but you won't need that because you already have it.
so let's review real quick because I mean these are heavy strategies, but they're easy to implement. So,
Yes.
working on improving our memory. Number one, engage multiple senses, right?
Right.
So our hearing, our visual, try to engage as many of those senses as you can to help you remember things that are important.
Number two is create vivid mental images and stories, and remember to be a little wacky, to be a little out there. That will help make it illogical, even, and that will help with the memory.
And then practice that active recall and spaced repetition. So, I mean, make sure I mean, to use a word from school, make sure we're studying and then make sure we're
Yeah.
reviewing, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
cramming everything all at once, you're just going to forget it. But cramming it and then spaced repetition on top of that will help you remember long term.
Yes.
And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Don't forget, share this with somebody who would like it. See how I did that? Don't forget. And we'll
Yes.
see you on the next show. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.